Hi, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. This is kind of a special segment of the Dave Emmons and Strange Reality Show. Uh, we brought this. We brought. I brought this friend of mine who's a scientist, and we're gonna talk a little bit about this drone situation in New Jersey, New York, and California, and Florida, Massachusetts, and Ohio. I think they got them, and I heard in Chicago we have some drone action too. So it's all across the country and the world. And saw a picture of actually a metal looking drone is about 3 feet wide. It was on Heathrow Airport runway. And there was a good picture of that. It's on the internet and it looks like brass or something. And it looks like I guess a ball of cabbage because it's got leaves like, that covers around it. So that took off from it landed for a short while on the runway and then it took off. And I had my buddy Mark Ollie, which had him on the show the other day, and we talked about that on that show. And one of the interesting things I saw with that is when it landed, it was shooting out little white jets off to the side, like water spray off to the side and in the front. Those That wasn't water, that was plasma energy that it operates on. And Dr. Robert Scheib has some great pictures of his drones they're small drones, little drones, only about an inch and a half long, and they look like a copper bullet. And they travel at 1,200 miles an hour. When they travel, they get a little longer. But what they do is they inspect aircraft. Every time an aircraft flies by, these things will jump up off the ground and go up and check them out. And that's those real minute drones. And of course, the technology they have compared to ours is phenomenal. But the thing of it is, if people see the little white jets coming out the side and at the bottom when it takes off, and that I think you'll see that in some of these drones that you see up in the air in New Jersey, New York, and these other places, and you'll take a look at some of the internet videos. I wouldn't trust the internet videos 100%. I wouldn't go into saying that they're all correct, but some of them might be faked out, and this has been a problem with ufology and things of that nature is that we got too many CGIs and too many AIs now that's going on, and they're fooling us, and it's fake news. But there are some real videos on. I guess you can go to TikTok while it lasts, and you can go to Instagram and also Reels on Facebook, and you can see a lot of these videos with people filming them. Supposedly, these white orbs, the ones that are really bright that move around pretty fast, and people saying they're orbs, and then they get a closer shot of them. They have all kinds of designs in them, and they call it a plasma ball. Well, that could be so that the plasma balls will respond that way. And actually, they have a couple of videos that where one of these plasma balls knocked down a drone and it went crashing. They said that happened a couple of times, but they're watching each other. I don't know, we're going to get into with Dr. Bobby, or we're going to get into some of the specifics in the scientific realm of things. But what I'm thinking is that people are worried about this. The only thing I'm worried about is if it's ET, there is ET involvement. Those are the orbs, and they're watching what we're doing with our drones, and it has to be a spatial black ops operation that are practicing with these drones. And these are kind of like military drones. They call them commercial drones, but I think that's why the government's staying quiet, because it's something even they don't handle, because the Pentagon and the military are separate from these black operations. You're only on a need to know basis in these compartmentalized, I guess, departments. But it's it's mind-boggling what's going on, why they do it. There's a lot of theories about it. I'd say there's three different things going on. I think we have police drones up, and the government probably has some drones up watching the other drones, the drones that we can't figure out where they come from. You can say they're black ops, they're deep state, they're cabal, or New World Order stuff that might be up there trying to send off a false flag, and that'll take us into lockdowns and things of that nature and martial law. We don't want that. I'm more afraid of those operations than I am the ETs, because I think the ETs are just watching what's going on. They have enough to watch. We've got war in Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Syria and Hamas. We have all this going on, and they're watching. The ETs don't want us to use nuclear weapons. Those who believe in ETs, I believe they play a part in this. I think they're like 1/3 of the whole thing that's going on. It's There's three different elements involved here, and we can't figure out which one's which. Some people say that these drones are big as cars or a small bus, and they fly at night. And a lot of and experts say that they don't usually fly drones at night. Maybe I can have Dr. Bob, kind of get into that part of it for us. But they're flying at night. They don't fly during the daytime. So that's a strange thing. And then they say they come up out of water. That hasn't been proven yet. So what I'm going to say to the platform right now, this is for entertainment purposes only, and it's for educational purposes only. And because we don't have a solid, just like the government, but the government does know more than what they're saying. They don't want to let it out because they don't want to scare people. They don't want everybody to get into this chaos thing until they're ready for the chaos. I guess I don't trust any of the factions, the three factions that are involved. So we don't know how this is all going to come out, but it's getting more interesting all the time. But I still think it's 1/3 ET watching us with the orbs, maybe 1/3 with spatial black ops, and then maybe 1/3 is police and also our government checking things out in the air, checking the drones out, which one's which, what are they doing, and it's been going on since about November 10th. So we're over a month with this whole situation, and it's all around the world. It's in Germany, in our Air Force bases in Germany. It's in India. It's in China even. So these drones are all over the world. So it takes more than a commercial or I guess, hobbyist to do this all over the world. Something's just not adding up. Like I said, I'm more afraid of all the special ops and what they plan on doing, and it's just only creating fear. And fear creates divide, and also fear makes you numb with things that are going on. And we've had some tumultuous years this last 3 or 4 years. That's for sure. So it seems like when people see these things, they're not surprised. Strange things are happening. The Pope is opening up the gateway or the portal for, I guess, for saints and these, I guess, supernatural entities. They're supposed to be good supernatural entities, and he's supposed to be opening that up. And he told us a few months ago that you will be seeing more supernatural things. Just believe what you see and don't get all shook up about it. So it's happening. We have more UFOs and UAPs going on around the world than we've ever had, like a 200% uptick. So saying all that and not knowing, we'll see if we can get some answers with Dr. Bob here. Who I'm talking to is Robert W. Gross, Dr. Robert W. Gross. And in 1980, he began working on classified cross-disciplinary research projects at the Penn State Center for Acoustics. While there, he was introduced to classified research information related to NASA's space shuttle. So he's worked with NASA. By 1984, he has earned a Doctor of Education degree from Penn State, and they honored his doctoral dissertation with an excellent award. And in 05 to 07, he was employed by the United States Department of Interior. In 06 and 07, as a government agent, he recruited astronauts for NASA's National Aeronautics and Space Administration's Astronomical Research and Exploration Science, a directorate. From 07 to 10, he collaborated with Spaceport America and New Mexico to promote. My mouth is dry to Dr. Bob while ago. Yeah, my mouth
It's
gets
those aliens.
Yeah, it's the aliens that done it. Yeah, we've had some strange things happen between Bob and I today, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, don't tell them about that.
Don't tell him.
No, I'm just kidding.
There's, like somebody just took over phones, basically. I won't say no more there. But yeah, this, and then, well, let's see, where was that? National Aeronautics and Space Administration Research Exploration Science Directorate. From 07 to 10, he collaborated with Fort America in New Mexico to promote educational involvement in public schools through activities, educational materials, and training and aimed at promoting science, technology, and engineering. And in 21, he was recruited by Alvy Loeb to help train in artificial intelligence, AI, computer running powerful AI software to identify UAPs. So he's got some expertise in this. From 21 to 23, he served as a volunteer with the Galileo Project, TGP, at Harvard University. As a volunteer with TGP, he carried out essential tasks that involved helping train an artificial intelligence recognize unidentified anomalous phenomena. He's worked with an aerial phenomenal label engine to label images, photos scraped from the web. He'll explain that soon. He selected a region of interest for any image and photo that could be rescued by cropping. Moreover, as the story continues, he's been working on drones, identifying UAPs, and he trained and studied on that while he was with the Galileo Project. And let me welcome aboard Dr. Robert W. Gross. I guess you're waiting for that long-winded intro to end. Dr. Gross.
Thanks, Dave. It's good to be here again. Is that a drone behind you in that photograph, or is
That's actually a craft.
a craft? Okay.
I've been able to identify that.
Because you, you and I met in one of those saintly corridors, didn't we? Didn't we? That's where we first ran into each other.
Yeah.
That the Pope was going to open up.
Right. That's right. And
that's right. You forget about those days.
Yeah, we got out early, didn't we? Beat the rush out the
door. You might say that. But thanks, Dave. It's good to be here. Especially during these times right now. I'm like 76 years old, and I've never seen anything quite like this. And I've seen a lot during my time. But right now, as you and I have been talking earlier, and you had mentioned at the beginning here at the program, there's all sorts of things going on out there.
Right.
And a lot of those things, nobody's really sure about what's going on, what's happening. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of different things. Now, what I wanted to talk to you and your followers about tonight is the fact that it seems like some people have almost given up, and I don't blame them, that they're ever going to find an answer as to what's going on right now. Especially, the people are talking about the government not wanting to give us answers, and no one's giving away answers. And it's hard to get almost like a straight answer from anybody.
Right.
But in my experience, again, this is my experience, and as you read off there, mine's a little bit different than most people's. But I can tell you that from, let's say, just the work that I did with the Galileo Project at Harvard University. And I was working with that from 2021 to 2023. There is information out there about, for example, drones. People have gathered information about things that might be eventually considered to be UAPs, unidentified anomalous phenomena. People like myself, scientists, not government people, not people who are interested in making money, because I didn't make any money off of being part of the Galileo Project. I was recruited, I volunteered, I was working on identifying anything. Well, I was working with an artificial intelligence computer that was running powerful AI software. Now, that was an introductory, sort of an introductory phase for me, working with that at Harvard University's the Galileo Project. So I was working, and I was starting to realize that there's a lot of information out there that the average person doesn't know. and even a lot of stuff that I didn't know when I first started working with it. And, my eyes opened up. But there is, from my experience and what they were doing with the Galileo Project, people are gathering information to help solve, let's call it a mystery. Okay. There are people trying to gather data to make sense of what's going on right now. That's basically what I was doing. But how they use that data, you've heard the old saying, like with computers, garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
It's the same thing with AI computers. And I can tell you myself, my own personal experience from the time I was, I think, 9 years old, I've had 8 encounters with genuine UAP. Okay, genuine unidentified aerial phenomena. So I know there's something out there. And I've had some of them up close. I've had the wind knocked out of me by them. I've had to go to the hospital to make sure I wasn't radioactive after being so close to a UAP. So, and I think there's probably not the, well, I know you've seen a few and some up close,
Yes.
but seeing 6 or 8 of them is not normal.
No.
There's some reason, there's some reason, and I've got a good idea why it is, but there's some reason we're seeing them. But right now, there are people like myself really trying to figure out what's going on. And something is going on. I'm not saying that it's necessarily, from another planet or another solar system or whatever. But and I do believe that there is life out there in the cosmos somewhere. Just statistically speaking, there's got to be. Now, it may take a long time for it to get here, and it may not look like us or act like us, but it's out there. Now, to saying that it's here right now, that's kind of a stretch of imagination. But there's something happening out there that can't be explained right now. But there is information out there. There is data. I collected data, on these kind of objects.
Dr. Bob, I want to insert this while you're talking. I know you're talking from a scientific viewpoint that they may not be here yet, but they've been here for thousands of years, buddy. If it's I've seen them here, and I know they're here. And Dr. Jacobs and Dr. Vernon Mack, all these people, Gary Nolan, they all say they're here. They're walking amongst us. So they've been seen in our air for so many years. So that's a conflict. People wanting to really know what they really are. There's the other thing too. Remember, you brought this up to me about the show we had, I think it was back in January, February. We talked about Project Blue, the
Project Bluebeam.
Blue Beam. Yes, those that we brought that. I was trying to think of the date, but I think it was February. We brought that up, and lo and behold, you researched it, and then go ahead and tell if you can
Okay.
tell about that, Doctor.
Well, again, I'm a scientist, and I need, it takes real, honest to God, verified data and information for me to see, that it's real. Because I've, like I said, no doubt in my mind, I saw 8 UAPs.
Yeah.
Now, what they actually were.
How about interdimensional, Dr. Bob?
Hmm?
The interdimensional. That's what people are saying, that these orbs are, they're plasma orbs or whatever.
Well, Dave, plasma is a whole unique, terrific thing. As I work with other groups of people that work in, plasma is one of the basics, like what, liquids, solids, plasma. That's one of those basic things on Earth. I can't even take a guess as to seeing, what exactly we're working with, because we're just in an infancy in our science. And science doesn't get better, or it gets less wrong over time. And that's what the fun part about it is, because science, it does, when someone finds something new, it doesn't mean they're wrong. It just means that they found something new to add to the entire world of information that's out there. But I mean, there's definitely, I think, as far as, let's say, UAPs in general, we're kind of going off the subject here, but it's normal for human beings to experience UAPs. Now, you have to be careful. I'm saying experience. There's a difference between seeing a UAP and experiencing it. Okay. And that's, again, one of the book that I'm working on now is called I've met the aliens and they are us. And it's a call for UAP literacy, because there's so much more that needs to be talked about with UAPs, because people have been experiencing them since the beginning of time. But it's normal. I'd say if you aren't experiencing them, you're not normal.
Hmm.
I mean, so you should actually, I mean, and that's how, and I think really from research I've worked with, the more experiences you have with UAPs, like I thrive on them, your brain grows more and in different ways. And Gary Nolan, I don't necessarily agree with everything he says, but lately he's been talking that same way. When you learn something, your brain, depending on how that information is given to you, your brain's going to code it in certain ways. And then that depends on where that information is placed within your brain. And then when you need that information, it depends on the connections you have in your brain, where it's going to pull that information that you need to solve the issue you're facing from. So all of that's coloring a little bit of what you're experiencing.
Okay, now the three facets that I was talking about, ETs, black operations, and our government up there. I didn't mention Project Bluebeam could be involved in it too. So there you got four, four theories working on what's going on right now. So is that what, can you, I guess, classify each
Well, no, what were they again? You said there were black ops.
black ops, our Pentagon, our military? Is
Okay,
it?
I agree with that's probably a no-brainer. That's happening.
Yeah, and then there's the sightings of UAPs that are round orbs, and they've got so many of them filmed that it's quite obvious that there's something else up.
Yeah.
So
Well, I've seen round orbs myself. Now, I I won't take that giant step and say they're from another universe or another planet, but I've been pretty close to some orbs. And you know, there's some research that indicates these orbs could be plasma. And that can have an effect on your brain. I mean, and when I was 9 years old, I was knocked over by ball lightning. It didn't hit me, but it came really close to me and knocked me on the ground, knocked the air out of me.
like,
Okay. And there were witnesses there. I think me being that close to plasma, which is what ball lightning technically is, did something to me physically and mentally. And then I started having experiences with aesthetic experiences with music right after that I never had before. So there's connections here, and I agree with you. They're all connected, and I don't know how far they go, but we have to really look for those connections. And some of the people, the information is out there, a lot more information than one might think, because I've collected that kind of information. Now, where that information is being held, who has it, and what they're doing with it, only God knows that, if you believe in all that,
yeah.
line of thinking.
I want to bring up too that people are getting so nervous about all this, and they don't trust our government. That's what it's been going on for some time. They don't trust our government. The president is quiet about everything. Pentagon's going around the circles. One reporter brought it up to the admiral, that's the Pentagon spokesman. Forget his name, but he's been really good about explaining things. But now this reporter, no, this was a general. No, this was a major general that was talking at the Pentagon. I'm sorry. Sorry, I take that back. It was a major general that's a spokesman at the Pentagon. And one of the Fox reporters asked him, okay, you had a confidential meeting. It was in a skiff in the Senate or the
No.
Congress. And it said, if you know that these are commercial drones, or if you know what's going on, why are you keeping everything so confidential? And that kind of hit home. And he kind of stuttered a little bit and had to back off. He said, "Well, I'll have to talk to some other members what's going on." But and she said there was no reason to have a top secret meeting if they were just commercial drones or hobbyist drones, and why the top secret meeting and why we're not hearing anything. So she hit the nail on the head with that question. So the government doesn't want to tell us. There's something that they don't want us to know, and they don't want to tell us.
Well, I agree with you totally, Dave, on that. And they've got their own, I can tell you from working with the government, okay, and being technically a government agent for years, that you really are never sure what's going on. And that's just how it works.
Right. And
You
another
know,
thing I want to warn people about, I noticed that there's a couple of videos that of people shooting at these or
oh,
these these drones. Do not shoot a rifle with a solid lead ammo. Do not, because when that bullet goes up, it's got to come down. And when it comes down, it can do damage. It could hurt somebody really bad, maybe even kill them. So be careful about shooting up in the air with those rifles. If you're doing that, don't do that. I don't want to recommend using a shotgun because I don't want to recommend any shooting, but shotguns are a lot safer if they're flying at your house, over your house, and they're scaring you. You might want to defend yourself, but don't defend yourself if you don't have to. This is a situation where the government should come in and take over. Do not shoot at these drones. That's the bottom line, I guess I want to say, Dr. Bob.
yeah, well, and another thing, Dave, like discussions like we're having right now, intelligent discussions about things, that's important because there are, I have a different background, you have a different background, some of your listeners have different backgrounds. Those different backgrounds are extremely important because they're going to be seeing things slightly different than I am. And if my mind's open enough, I'm going to start seeing, you know, how they're perceiving these things as well. No, because, your background makes a difference. Your upbringing makes a difference. How your brain is organized makes a difference. How your senses are working makes a difference. It's very, very complex. And again, be thankful you're having experiences. You ought to be having those. I mean, you and I both have had them,
Yeah.
and up close too. Man, there's nothing. That's one of the best parts about being human is having those experiences without, you know, fainting or something.
A lot of people say, "Aren't you afraid, Dave?" I said, "No, I've been through so many experiences. I can tell you, these people say also when these drones go over, Dr. Bob, that they must emit some kind of magnetic flux or some kind of energy because their cars will flicker, their lights will flicker, and also the clocks go crazy, they readjust themselves. And it's kind of similar to what happened to me 3 weeks ago in my car. When I went out to turn the car key on, everything was flashing. My mirror lights were flashing for close-up drivers on the side. My brake light was on and my emergency brake was not on. There was lights on the dash, it was on, and it was popping up all kinds of maintenance problems. And I said, my God, I can't keep up with all these maintenance problems. But the biggest thing was the I have a digital and I have a needle, speedometer, and it was going like this. It was flashing like that. That is unusual. That was the most unusual thing. I looked at that and I said, "Wow." So one of those drones must have passed over me since I was about 2, 3 weeks ago, and I was right in the middle of this past 5 weeks. So something told me to go ahead and drive the car. So I did. A lot of people would just stop and say, "This car's dead," And so something told me to drive it. I went ahead and drive. I drove it, and the transmission was clutching pretty hard. It was automatic, but it was clutching pretty hard. But the and then my brakes were solid. And when I drove, I couldn't see anything or see how fast I was going because they were still going crazy. But 10 minutes later, after I got to my destination, everything disappeared. The car was running fine. It was great. I said, "Wow, all the lights went out, all the trouble indicators went out, the car was driving fine." And I thought, okay, that's some kind of an energy, and I can feel what these people are feeling when they say these things are over them. And their clocks. I never heard their speedometers messed up, but I heard that the clocks were messing up and their lights were flickering. So it kind of reminds you of that Third Kind movie, Spielberg, with what's his
Close encounter.
yeah, yeah. And he drove across the tracks and all of a sudden
Yes.
start going crazy. So it kind of reminded me of that. So they're apparently these drones or whatever they are emitting some kind of energy. There's also a laser light that comes down. It's blue that shoots down from these drones. Uh, I don't know what is going on. Maybe that's why the government, so they don't know what's going on. But
Well, I'm sure that they don't, and if it probably, and now again, this is from my experience working with the government, you know, and I can't get into details, but I've been pulled aside saying, don't say anything about this, okay, until we can figure out what really happened,
right,
and that's typical. I mean, you wouldn't want to, I wouldn't want, maybe I wouldn't want to panic people because not everybody thinks like I do. Not everybody thinks like you do. I think we're just very fortunate to have had these experiences.
yeah.
People, and we're still alive,
And
but
yeah, I think people are waking up though now to the fact that there are UAPs that fly around. They're going to see them, and their disclosure thing is getting closer. We hope. Maybe the ETs want a quicker disclosure. Maybe that's why they're starting to show up, and they come through. They're coming through these portals. You can see them in the sky, the round rings, and they come through those. And yeah, these craft are coming through portals, and that's what some of these people have filmed. And down in Florida, there was a portal there that these white orbs were coming out of. So you see all these anomalies on film, and you wonder, okay, we're adding like Project Bluebeam that could shoot up a holograph in the air and make it look like a flying saucer or any kind of a ship they want. And then you got the black operations that might have a different I guess, idea of what they want to do. And then you got the military and the police that might be flying around up there. So, and then then we're talking about the ETs and the orbs. Those are the four things that I'm thinking about, but none of them are really concrete, Dr. Bob. We like you
well,
said.
true. And it's, even like, let's take let's take the people from the Galileo Project. There were a lot of people working on gathering information, hardcore information, as far as I'm concerned, from you know photographs, like that someone had taken. I had worked with when they were doing these what's called the scraping of the web. Basically, uh, technically, you could get any photograph that was ever taken of, let's say, since we're concerned about the, well, let's just take not the orbs so much, but if we were talking about, oh, the drones. Okay, so we could ask for, now this is again hypothetical. I don't want to get into in too much detail, but if you wanted to, you could get every photograph that's ever been taken about a an orb. And then you can get it, you can put it on a computer, you can give it to someone like me, or there's a lot of people working on these things. They start to examine it. So let's say a typical day might be where I decide to, let's say I decide, I go to my computers and I go into my the Galileo Project, gateway. I log into it, and there's somebody has already supplied me with photographs, very clear photographs that I can look at. So let's say I decide to look at drones that day, and I'll pick up a photograph of a drone, and I'll start looking, and I'll say, there's something about this. It's not quite right. So I reject that. Then finally, I'll find a photograph of a quality, what I consider, just me. And again, my tastes are probably different than yours. I would take that photograph and I would start to maximize it. I look at, see, is there air behind it, or is there ground behind it? Is there another object behind it, or is it just nothing behind it? And then I'd have to decide, okay, is this still a quality photograph of just a drone? And if I decide it is, and that takes a while for me to decide that, then I can crop it and send it along. And then, people can use that, let's say that photograph, for examining what drones ought to look like, or whatever you want to call it.
Dr. Bob wanted to stop you and ask you a question about these drones that you studied. And you've seen some of these drones on the internet, right? I mean, have you seen any of them that they're flying around? And I was wondering,
You mean the current drones, or the ones that I was studying back then?
current ones, do any of those match that you studied? Do they match with what's going on now with these drones today?
Uh, I cannot say that I've seen enough of the what's going on right now to match. I'm 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 pretty sure it would probably match, because literally I've seen hundreds upon hundreds of photographs, quality photographs of drones. So, that's another thing. If, let's say, if everybody did that, and it's, to me, it's like eating salted peanuts. Okay. You take a look at one photograph of a drone, and you're really looking up underneath it in every way, which way possible. And then once you decide it's a quality photo of a drone, you crop it and basically save it.
Right. Mhm.
So not only am I training that computer how to recognize or identify the typical drone, I'm training my own brain. So anybody who's training especially an AI computer, and if you've got to be a quality person to train those computers. Like they say, garbage in, garbage out. If you get some kind of, if you get a second grader in there and he's, just playing around with a computer, you're not going to get quality examples, quality information to study.
Now, about propulsion, Dr. Bob, these drones that are being flown now, there's no there's no jet streams, no jet flow, no there are roaring of engines, and they have some of them that look like airplanes, but I think those sounds can be mimicked by technology, even our technology. They can have a speaker there, and they can mimic the sound of a plane or an engine, and that's what's going on now, I think, with some of these drones. But the propulsion systems are another question that I bring up, because they're saying that these things will stay in the air 6 or 7 hours overnight, and they don't run out of fuel. The typical drone, their batteries will not last that long. But what do you think about the propulsion, Dr. Bob?
That's a good question, Dave. Okay, let's see. There are one of the things that things that makes a UAP is you're going to observe, if you're a quality observer, okay, a trained observer, you're going to observe that there's something odd about that, even though you won't know what it is when you first see it. And that's how the human brain works. There's a whole chain of things where you, first of all, you see something and then you start perceiving it. That's when your brain comes into play. But knowing that there's different things there than you normally would see if you'd look up into the air at an object. That's one of the first signs that it's a UAP,
Mhm.
because it's got to, your body, your mind will react differently. What you're the in all of this whole thing with UAPs, UFOs, whatever people want to call them. Actually, I prefer UAP, but the one thing is, what happens is when you are really having experience with something that's unidentifiable, it's anomalous, and it's a phenomenon. Uh, you know it. You're going to have a reaction, and that you know that there's something different about that, and you kind of like stick like glue to it.
Right.
If you've been trained to do that.
Right. The propulsion system, I think, is plasma. And I heard that these drones sometimes get around power lines. Now, Dr. Robert Shipe and I went through a couple of shows and we talked about the drones that he were talking about, that they go to these power lines and they can absorb energy or electricity, and that creates electrical plasma. So these things that are up there 6 or 7 hours, there has to be something that they got different or better batteries, or they have a propulsion system that is plasma propulsion. And so that's what bothers me. How come they can stay up so long, and how come they fly at night, and why are they flying so at times? So
Okay,
mystery is there.
if they're real UAPs, if they're genuine UAPs, they ought to be able to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah, if they don't, they're not they're just fancy
commercial drones.
commercial doing. I mean, if there, I think who was a Lou Elizondo. He had a list one time of, I think there were 5 things that you look for to make sure that this thing that you're looking at is probably a UAP, a genuine UAP.
Right.
And those are the type of things you look, things like where they can turn faster, they can move faster. There's they can go from air to water without much of a problem. So that's the key that people ought to be looking for, are those way out things, because everything's going to be on the cusp. If there's a scientist worth his salt out there, he's working on something new.
Mhm.
But the idea is, like, right now, we're both interested in these kind of things.
What about water, Dr. Bob? They claim that they come up out of water, out of the Atlantic Ocean, and then they fly into shore. Do we have drones that can go through water and come up and fly, Dr. Bob? I mean,
That's not part of my bailiwick. Okay. But I've seen reports, I've talked to the people that, yeah, they can come, they can go from one medium to another medium. But again, that's to be expected. When you see that, you go, oh, wow, that is a UAP. It's not a flying fish.
mm,
But you're it's going to take a while for the human brain to get used to this. You're retooling your brain, but there's nothing wrong with that. Humans have been doing this since they've been on Earth.
like I said, I'm not afraid of the ET factor, the 1/4 of what I'm talking about. One out of the four, I guess you could actually say, theories that I brought up and talking about the. I'm not afraid of the ET aspect because they've been out there watching us for thousands of years, but it's the other things. What are these craft made out of? Are they run by nuclear? Are they run by plasma? Could they be dangerous? They a lot of state people, the governors and everything said stay away from them if they crash, if they fall, you don't get near one, because they send in these hazmat people and they look at them and organize them into into something they can understand. But I think there's been two of them that's crashed, and I think they retrieved them. The other thing too is that if there if there are military and our police drones, they're there to keep an eye on things also. So you have all these factions that these four things that are going on. It's hard to really say that, yeah, that's what it is. They still haven't proved it. There's a mess up there in the sky in New Jersey and New York. I mean, you got all kinds of craft floating around, and how can you figure that out? Is that by design? I wonder, Dr. Bob. Are we supposed to be confused?
Well, first of all, we're supposed to be studying this stuff. Our scientists are, not necessarily you and I. Now, I do because, I enjoy doing that, and so do you. But we definitely don't know all the answers. I know I don't, but if I see something that's, oh, well, I don't think that should do that, just like if I saw somebody walking down the street and they decided to bend all the way backwards and pick up a stone with their mouth from behind them. Say, I don't think they should be able to do that, and yet somebody did it. And that's what gets your attention. You have got to have your brain has got to be exercised enough to realize the nuances in activities that you're witnessing in that's why they call them an unidentified anomalous phenomena.
Right.
They're you don't know what they are. The brain, the key is a nebulous stimuli. That's in my opinion, from what I've studied on these, and it's not just in these, because mostly studying with the arts as well. Those two link up together, and advanced study. But if you look up in the sky, which I know you have, and you see something that you cannot quite identify. Okay, did that ever happen? You looked up and you saw something, it looked familiar, but it wasn't quite the real McCoy.
Yeah. Well, if you've seen several of them close up, orbs don't count anymore. I don't count orbs. I
Yeah,
have to see the structure of the craft like I have before, and I'm not that excited unless I see
well,
the.
see, that's what I mean. That's exactly, you're retooling your brain. I mean, you're not doing it, your brain's doing it automatically. Okay, you have got to, yeah, it's how, the big thing is how your brain perceive things and the kind of information that you put in your brain. Now, just to give you an example of that, because I know you're a musician just like I am, right?
Mhm.
Uh, when I did my undergraduate work and the aliens, the undergraduate work at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. Okay, and they were really concerned. They wanted you to, what they call, having a good ear. In other words, you could hear the difference between an A and a B flat, or you could sing a song by going do, mi, so, re, fa, and all that stuff. So if you had a really good ear, you were thought of highly at Duquesne University's music school. Okay. Well, my ear, they used to call me the Van Gogh of the music school because they said I had no ear. So I was always working, trying to make my hearing better. Okay. So I would invent these little exercises to do with the piano. I was really stretching my ears capabilities. Well, it got so far one time that I didn't realize it until one day I realized I could hear the difference between when water was running. Let's say water was running out of a sink and I wasn't looking at the stream of water. I could tell if the water was hot or cold just by listening to it.
Mm, right.
And there's other things that happened when I was working with electronic music, when I was making unique sounds that didn't exist in nature. I would start to vision different colors while I was listening to those sounds. So you can really take the human brain and stretch it. We're not even at all into working our brains to their full capacity.
Right. Yeah. No, that's what we're only working about 20% of it. Uh,
But these things help. Like our discussions help. If we don't have these kind of discussions, we might as well go back and live in caves.
no. Well, we're just about at the point where we wanted to be about 45 minutes in.
Oh,
I want
we
your
just started.
I want your final. Well, this is a special show, and
Okay.
I don't want it to be long so people can listen,
Okay.
in what we have.
Sure.
Concluding and in a conclusion, Dr. Bob, could you sum what's going on up today and in about 12 states?
You mean so with what's going on with the drones and so forth?
Mhm.
I think it is like you were saying earlier. It's a conglomeration of things from what I'm looking at. I think one thing that is happening is that uh, the government is experimenting with uh, like a channel for drones and how drones in the future of how safe they are to operate at a certain channel. I think that's one thing that's being looked at.
Yeah,
Uh,
I heard.
I think there's new technology going on. Another thing I think it would help us a whole lot if we took like the information that I know that the Galileo Project has, because I was one of the people gathering that. And if they would start to make that information, whatever it is, available for others to study and look at, that's going to probably kick it up a whole notch as to what we understand. Now, I don't know what all of those people were looking at when they were working on it, but I'm guaranteeing if they did it right, and I'm not saying they did it right, there should be information that's out there. It's available. People should, at least we can say this. I think people should be at ease that that information is out there. And I'm sure the government has their own information. And I'm sure that, like I said, I don't know if Avi Loeb has plans to share information that he's gathered. He ought to, if he's a real scientist, okay? But as long as people have been gathering that information, and I think they have, we can feel pretty safe that they're going to use that information to help society rather than to hurt it.
My question about these drones that are flying, in which it's perplexing. I have to go back to the ET version of things, but
Okay.
why at night? I already said that. Why do they fly at night? And if they were practicing and training with these new types of drones, why do it over populated areas and over military installations? I can see why maybe military installations, but why aren't they doing it out in Utah and Arizona where there's wide open spaces where there are some drones out there in Arizona and Nevada? That's what I heard in California. But why not take their training out there where you can get it away from the population? There's a reason why they're doing it over population.
Yes.
They're-
Yes.
It's to make us scared or make us.
No. I mean, we're getting scared because we're not educated about this enough yet. What they're seeing, that trying to do is see how are these people going to react when we show them this stuff.
And also how they can stay aloft for 6, 7 hours without refueling. That's another question that I got with a lot of these drones. So
How do we know that we don't know yet for sure that they're not refueling? They may be just using up the fuel, and then going to another source of fuel. I mean, there would be, in my opinion, and again, that's not my, area, but there's ways to, there are ways to use the solar sails to go for a long, long time. You can take a look at the history. I mean, the whole UFO thing, with Roswell and Kecksburg and all that, that's different than it really is. It's the Roswell thing was like a syndrome. I mean, it happened. I lived in New Mexico for 10 years, and it was a terrific experience. But they're testing to see us. What's a human going to do under these conditions?
yeah, I'm still stuck with all these things that's going on. Why hasn't the government talked? and even soon to be President Trump has said that they should know. He said he knows the military should know. If they don't know, then he said we're going to probably be in trouble if they don't know what these things are and where they're coming from. And he
Yeah.
said the president, they know what's going on
But
partly. I think one third of the formula that I spoke about. Do they know about the ETs totally? No, I think that's why they're up there. But we have the black ops, we have the government and the police, and then we have ETs, and then we have Project Bluebeam. Those
oh
four things, you throw them in together, and it's confusing.
no. Well, yes. I mean, it's supposed to be confusing because I mean, you and I have talked about Bluebeam. You're the one that told me about it, and I said, wait a minute, this is exactly what I've been working on for the last 5 years, and you knew it happened. I never knew it happened. Now there's that lack, I wouldn't call it lack of communication, but why wasn't there times when you and I sat down once a month and talked about everything we knew?
Mhm.
That's when I was with the Ohio Department of Education, I was with a group called the Transdisciplinary Technology Team. Once a month, we met in Cincinnati, where there was an Apple headquarters there, Apple computer headquarters there, and I got debriefed on every new piece of technology that was in the world that month. My team did, not just me. Now we need that kind of thinking.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that these drones are seen all over the world and 12, maybe 14 states now. So that's another puzzling number in the formula. So this is really difficult. This is I just wonder, I just keep wondering, and I'm afraid because is this by design that we are fearful and we don't know what's going on?
Well,
Government's
it's
not
it's by design because, and this is my opinion, Dave. There are, again, I'm an educator. My doctorate's in education. The reason why people are doing this, and we're kind of letting people down, is because our educational system let them down. We should have more literacy about, I would call it, for lack of better words right now, UAP literacy. And
right.
I used to write standards and all that for the national standards and state standards. They got to start putting UAP standards out there in education. That's the biggest thing I'm pushing, so we can have these kind of discussions.
And well, disclosure has to happen, I guess, for the government to be involved tell everybody about. But I don't know why they're keeping things from us. That's the scariest part, I think. Project Bluebeam and the ETs doesn't bother me. Black Ops kind of bothers me because there's a false flag, you know, indication there. So that's what bothers me too. And our government,
It's
that's
it's not just the government either, Dave.
I
I
know.
mean, I've run into people that wouldn't publish my books because the truth would get out there, and people who weren't writing the truth would lose the money that they would normally make on it. And I've been told that I have it in writing from a book publisher.
Yeah. Okay, I think we'll close the show out right now. Dr. Robert Gross, he's been with me talking and
Thank you, Dave.
had a back and forth, and I think that's good that we have a discussion. I think a lot of people should be thinking about what they think or what they see. If they actually see them, they should take pictures first or videos and then try to figure out what they think they have seen. But I think it's due time for the government to open up and talk about it, and I think that's going to be the only thing that's going to help ease
And
nerves.
yeah, yeah, and instead of running from it, take it in,
Right.
absorb it,
Right.
let it work on you instead of you working on it.
Okay, we're going to close this special edition. I'm going to call this a special edition because I do have other shows in the can that I got to throw out there and distribute. But this year we brought it up today because we felt it necessary to talk about this topic, and I've been talking about it a little bit in a couple of the other shows, and uh, and I want people to be enlightened and think about what they think. I just give about four theories. I can't prove any of them. Like I said, it's for, entertainment purposes, but I think everybody knows what I'm talking about, and they'll make up their own minds, and everybody do that.
Dave, I think you just today's show. I think you just did a major service for humankind.
Well, I thank you, but this is why I do these things, and it's for enlightenment. And because I know I've had a lot of experiences, a lot of times, like you said earlier, we're lucky to have experiences that we have. That way, we know how to formulate our decisions and our thoughts because I've had these ET experiences and plenty of them. So I that's why I know ET's involved in this formula, at least one out of four of the theories. But I'll thank you very much, Dr. Robert
My
Gross.
pleasure.
You've been listening to The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons and Dr. Gross. We hope I'll get this out right away because this is a timely subject.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much and for listening. And if you have any comments, write the comments down. If you got any questions for Dr. Bob, write the comments down. I'll make sure he gets them. Thank you very much and good evening, everybody.